there, MegaMogwai here, and I got another Legends of Runeterra video for you guys today, and another React Andy video for you beautiful mofos, as I am recording this just after having been done with a, what was it, like 6 hours? 6 hours cast. You know, we had like 5-minute breaks. I had to eat my spaghetti. You guys can still see it here. Like in 5 minutes. Which I've never eaten spaghetti so fast in my life. So we had the MALPHITE reveal. This happened in the middle of the stream. So I have seen the champion and everything, but I haven't actually gotten to see the video properly because you guys could see it in the stream. Those of you who were watching it, the tournament I'm referring to, that's what I was casting today, in case I didn't make that clear. But I couldn't listen to the audio. Like, because I was just looking at the feed, right? So I didn't listen to the audio or anything. So I want to take an actual good look at the video. It's not exactly a, you know, a blind reaction by any means, but it's still a reaction. And I want to make use of this to talk about MALPHITE and his cards and the cards that have been revealed a couple of days prior as well. So without further ado, let's 12-year-old with this bitch.
There is MALPHITE.
And let me actually make sure that the settings are all good. And we're full screen. There we go.
I am MALPHITE.
Okay, that's a deep voice. Makes sense. You summon 12 mana landmarks. Thick boy right there.
Papa, big as a mountain and
Twice as strong.
Okay, Chip is growing on me. I'm gonna be a Chip fanboy too. So this is a card that's really relevant. Ground Slam. Target now stuns at fast speed. Target has concussive pulp. As if Target needed anything else. It's fantastic. It's great.
I am gonna shake things up.
Fuck you, Grippy Yum. Why am I singing? And yes, this card is fire, dude. This card is insane. This card is insane.
Landslide.
It's so cool that if you manage to level him up before you play him, when you summon it, you get it as well.
That hits back.
Yeah, you stun him out and you overwhelm him.
To be MALPHITE. I will find Chip.
I love the music, and I love his voice makes sense, but the music is sick as hell. All right, so we had a look at that. Let's actually take a look over the cards. Let's head over to Twitter and let's talk about, you know, all the cards revealed today, and of course these past couple of days prior. So, you know, editing transition. All right, now let's take a look at the cards. We have a lot of cards to talk about, ladies and gentlemen, because not only the cards revolving around MALPHITE, but we also had a very, very big reveal a couple of days back as well regarding cards from all sorts of different regions. So there's quite a bit to talk about here. MALPHITE is a 7-mana 6/10 with tough, perhaps the most redundant ability to give to a big boy unit, but thematically it just makes sense. And if Nautilus has it, MALPHITE should too, because if there's any unit that deserves tough in this game, it's these two big boys, right? As the level of requirement says, you've summoned, there's my mouse. You've summoned a total of 12 or more mana of landmarks. Now, a combo that we saw in the video was this 3-mana burst speed spell. I forgot the name of it, but the one that spawns 2 Roiling Sands, right? It's important to note that Roiling Sands are 2 mana each. So that's very relevant, because for 3 mana, you can spawn 4 mana worth of landmarks. So that's maybe a card to look into if you're trying to build a solid deck that levels up MALPHITE consistently, right? So very, very cool, the fact that he has this stun synergy, but also requires you to build him around landmarks as well. It's just really, really neat. And his leveled up form is insane, because when you summoned him, or at the beginning of every round, if you have the attack token, you can create an unstoppable force in hand. An unstoppable force is a ridiculous card. The first thing that comes to mind is Yasuo. Like combining Yasuo with MALPHITE in a deck that somehow gets landmarks going. I don't know if that's even viable, but that seems really exciting. Regardless, like this card obviously you don't need to play Yasuo to justify this card by any means, by any stretch of imagination really, because this card is mainly aimed to be a finisher, right? So it's very exciting, because for 2 mana, that's like a super cheap way to just say your entire board it can't do anything. It cannot stop my attack, and that is really strong. His signature spell is also really good, which is important to note. It reminds you of Nautilus's Riptide, right? It does stun a unit at fast speed, but it deals 3 to it if you summon a landmark this game. So a very, very easy requirement to meet, but I do like this limitation because this makes it so that Targon cannot incorporate this stun onto any deck without having landmarks in it. And that's very important to know because unless your deck is filled with landmarks, there's going to be games in which you don't manage to find the landmark, and not dealing, like, missing out on the 3 damage is really relevant. But Targon still has access to a fast speed stun now, as if Targon needed to be able to do more things, I'm not sure how I feel about it, but it is definitely a great card to go alongside MALPHITE. And you know what? I'm gonna go beyond my Targon hatred for this, and I'm gonna embrace MALPHITE and everything that revolves around him. We got the Stonebreaker, which is a 6 mana 6/4 with a play effect that triggers a skill known as Shaken Ground. I just realized I'm gonna move my webcam here. I'm in the way. So I'm gonna make it easier for you guys to see everything, and I'm gonna move myself here. There we go. Now you guys can see. So Shaken Ground is a skill that says if you summon 4 or more landmarks this game, you deal 4 to an enemy and 2 to the enemy nexus. So one thing to note is that this is like all of a sudden Targon has damage, right? Targon has the ability to deal damage, which is something that they tend to, it's one of their biggest weaknesses, right? It's not very relevant because this is a very niche scenario or case, and it's a 6-drop, right? So it's not like this is going to be something implemented in any deck, and it has it's okay to give tools to a region that they didn't have before, if that new tool, requires a very, very specific sort of synergistic build, right? And that's what Stonebreaker is. 4 landmarks means you can only really justify this card in a full-on landmark deck. So that makes Stonebreaker an interesting card. I'm not sure how good this guy will be. Maybe I am underestimating him a little bit. He seems all right. But 6 mana is a lot. But then again, this effect is really neat, man. Like, you play a 6-drop, you can remove something, and you ping at the Annexes as well. So I think this guy, honestly, will be better than most people think he will be, ultimately. So there's that. MALPHITE looks just really awesome. I'm excited to try him out. I'm more excited about Zillion. Hopefully I finally got his pronunciation right. But MALPHITE is super exciting nonetheless, especially Unstoppable Force is just nutty, man. And I love champions built around landmarks. I want more landmark support, and this is just the beginning of it. So let's move on to the other Guardians of the Ancient. This card reveal that happened yesterday, which revolves a bunch of different landmarks and the Blue Sentinel. So first of all, let's talk about Spiral Stairs. Spiral Stairs is a 3-mana landmark with a countdown of 3 of creating a Seed of Strength in hand. So in a way, it's kind of like a delayed might, right? But you're granting the ally the health, and you're granting the ally, the overwhelm, and you're granting them health as well. You're making them really thick, which is really interesting. Overall, it does seem like Spiral Stairs is a little bit slow though, but with the countdown support, you can really speed this up. A card that I'm more excited about is Rockfall Path, because this card can have some really cool, quirky control sort of. What's the word that I'm searching here? Implications. Implications for control decks. Like, you can actually combine this with some a region that can ping, and this can go way beyond a landmark deck. You can have this in a control deck with Targon and something like Shadow Owls or Piltover, and you can ping off their weaker units and then have Rockfall Path for 2 mana effectively take down a very big unit with it. So I love delayed, I love interactive removal like this that can lead to some very, very quirky plays, and I'm very excited to mess around with this card. This is one of the coolest landmarks that we've gotten up to this point. Earth Elemental is a 4-mana 3/5 that becomes a 4-mana 6/5 with Overwhelm if you've summoned 4 or more landmarks this game. Now, it's actually not an easy requirement to meet because this is a 4-drop, right? So a lot of times this will be a 3/5 upon entry, but maybe like the next turn or 2 turns from that point onwards, it will be a 6/5. So I'm not sure exactly how viable this would be, but it's honestly like really solid. Just if you think about it, like this card, the Bull Elnuk is a 4-mana 4/5, right? You're paying 1 power for the Overwhelm keyword, and this guy will buff himself by 3 once you meet that requirement. So it's hard believing this card will not be really good in the decks that it's intended to be in. and I definitely think it's really decent. But speaking of decent, Blue Sentinel seems to be the winner of this package here. A 2-mana 2/3 with a vanilla stat line, solid stat line of 2/3, that has a last breath effect of summoning a Crest of Insight. Crest of Insight is a landmark with a countdown 1 of getting you an extra mana gem this round. You're giving target ramp beyond Veil Temple. That is scary. Like, this card, I feel like can be played in pretty much any target deck, really. It's just, it's that good. It really is that good. Like, it's a solid body that when it will go down, the next turn, you'll get an extra mana. And that just goes a long way, man. There's so many things that you can do to just capitalize on it. Having 1 mana over the opponent and being able to play a unit above curve without really sacrificing any momentum in the process, because for 2 mana you played a 2/3, which trades with most 2-drops effectively, is just amazing. Like, this card is outstanding, and we'll see play in a lot of target decks. Like, that's definitely what I expect out of it. This card is really, really good. And now we're going to move on to the big batch. Like, this is actually a 2-part here, as you guys can see, but we're going to focus on this one first. This one features Bilgewater, Freljord, and Shadow Owls, and we got a lot to talk about here. I'm actually going to start off, I'm going to go from right to left on this one because I'm really excited. Nah, fuck it, I'm going to go with the left. I'm going to keep the same order for everything. I'm just really excited about the Bilgewater cards. The Bilgewater cards are absolutely nutty. Bone Skewer is a 2-mana fast speed spell that says an ally strikes an enemy, then moves to the top of your deck. This is amazing because it's kind of like a different take on single combat, and you're giving it to Bilgewater, which is dying for interaction like this. More so, there's already been a lot of talks about this card functioning in the Deep archetype. So let me explain. This card can be used in Deep on stuff like Deadbloom Wanderer, for example, your toss units. You can use it for a lifesteal strike that will return the Deadbloom Wanderer to the top of your deck. So then you draw it, and yes, technically you're making your deck thicker, which is not what you want to do with Deep. But as you play that Deadbloom Wanderer again, you get to toss 3 cards. So you're effectively tossing 2 with it and playing it again, which allows you to thin through your deck while also fighting for the board and preserving your health against potentially aggressive decks as well. It can be used on Devourer of the Depths, and later down the line in the game, you can use it to strike something for 7 for 2 mana, which is amazing. Return Devourer of the Depths to the top of your deck, draw him later down the line, and play him again to eat something else. There's a lot of really neat combos in Deep, but it goes beyond that, man. There's a lot of very neat implications with this, and the more you think about like different combinations with other regions, the more exciting it becomes. It's a really, really neat card. It has a drawback, like, don't get me wrong, like moving the ally to the top of the deck is generally considered a drawback, but when you take summon effects into account, it can actually be a blessing in this guy. So it's a really, I love the design of this card. It's not broken by any means. You know, it can't just fit in any deck because it does have detrimental effects, but it's pretty amazing. And in a way, it can help you buy time against stuff like the Watcher as well, by returning a card to your deck, which is pretty cool too. Monster Harpoon makes Black Spear look like a little bitch, ladies and gentlemen. This card, once you trigger the Plunder, this card would go amazing in the deck that I showcased a couple of days back with Sejuani and Gangplank with Plunder. It is a 3-mana deal 5 that is enabled by Plunder, right? Which is amazing. It gives the deck more interaction, more abilities to control the board, and dealing 5 damage for 3s. There's so many things that you kill. Like, that threshold is really, really impactful, and it's awesome to see them develop a card like this for Bilgewater that also, more Plunder synergy. Like, I think, like, these 2 cards are amongst my favorite designs that I have seen in spells in a while. So I'm very, very excited to mess around with them. Then we got Succumb to the Cold, which is a 4-mana flash freeze that for 1 more mana, you're generating a Frozen Thrall. People are discounting or disregarding this card really quickly. They could be right, but in the right deck, like when you have like a bunch of countdown synergy, the ability to generate multiple Frozen Thralls can go a long way. So I think this card may be a little bit underrated in that regard, and I'm looking forward to experimenting with it. Not much more to say about it because that's basically what the card is. A more expensive flash freeze that nets you a Frozen Thrall. We have the Wings and the Wave, a 1-mana card that can turn into the first wave, which is basically like a weaker version of Fading Icon, or into Last Wind, which is a 1-mana 3/3. That to play me, you have to kill an ally. Cards that are flexible like this are very important. I think this card will become a staple for Thresh Nasses, though I could be wrong because the deck already has a lot of trouble packing in. Like, there's a lot of competition with for the 1 mana slot and the 2 mana slot. Considering Bark Beast doesn't make the cut in the deck anymore, says a lot, right? But I do definitely think that this level of flexibility is really important, and it definitely helps out a lot, and it makes Ravenous Butcher even better, man. So I think this card is really neat, but maybe it's not that good, to be honest, because First Wave is, you know, I don't know. I'd have to see. I'm definitely going to be messing around with it. Buried in Ice is a really strong card, but also a card that people have been freaking out quite a bit. People have been saying, well, it's not like Shadow Owls and Freljord needs more board wipes. Like, first of all, you never run this in Shadow Owls Freljord if you're playing Ruination already, because you don't run multiple copies of Ruination and multiple copies of this, because you're going to be, you're going to have terrible hands like half of your games. But this card gives non-Shadow Isles variants of Freljord a board wipe, and it can be combined with landmark removal as well, potentially. There's been the talks of the combo with It That Stares, the 8-drop that upon entry has the play effect of destroying all landmarks on the board. You can use this one turn and the next turn wipe them out. That's a pretty neat combo, though it's a very fair one if you think about it, because you're close to tapping out 2 turns in a row, so keep that in mind. Regardless, it is very powerful in the sense that I think this is much stronger in a mid-range deck than it is in a control deck, because this card thrives in a deck in which you're developing your own board as well, because you basically get to board wipe them and apply pressure with your own board. That's why I think this card in like a pure control deck is going to be pretty bad, actually, because you'd rather just be running Frostbites in that sense, because it is basically accomplishing the same. Still has a lot of implications and does give, like I said, non-Shadow Owls versions the ability to punish people who overcommit to the board. And I will be messing around with it myself for sure. And now we're going to move on to the Demacium and Piltover and Noxus cards. All these cards are so cool. So let's go over them. First of all, we got more elite support. We have the Ardent Tracker, and we have the Cythria Lady of Clouds. Now, Cythria Lady of Clouds, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm going to build a deck with this because the art looks amazing. And I'm going to do it for the thumbnail more than anything. But this card is very meme because 10 mana, like unless you're playing this with like with Overwhelm units, it doesn't really make that much sense. It's like redundant, the card, right? It's too expensive, and it's just a lot of the times all the value that you're getting out of it, like I said, is redundant because you're going to be getting chump blocked anyways. And by playing this, even if you play this with like any sort of like counter spells, you won't be able to defend against a board wipe because you're tapping out for 10, and yeah, extremely slow. I don't think it'll be competitive in the slightest, but it looks awesome, and I will be trying to build a deck around it for sure. I'm more excited about the Ardent Tracker, though. This card, I think, is low-key very, very good for elites. It mixes really well with Jarvan, because scout units in general with Jarvan are amazing, and I think this card is being underrated quite a bit, because we've already seen, I've tried a lot of elite decks, and I already see like the 4-mana Cythria as a pretty solid card, and this card is just so much better because of the scout and the thicker health stat. So yeah, I'm definitely going to be building elites when the expansion comes out, and hopefully we can actually make elites great again, as if they were ever great. Well, they're pretty decent, they're not that bad. We got Chirian Sumbworker. This card is actually very, very interesting. It is a 2-mana 1/2 with elusive that says when you summon another Chirian Sumbworker, obliterate me and transform allied Chirian Sumbworkers everywhere into Sumbworks Poses, or Pose. Sumbworks Pose is a 2-mana 4/2 with elusive, so it gets right stronger, gets 3 power, and upon attack, you deal 1 damage to all enemies in the enemy nexus. So you can even board wipe against aggro as well. Where do I see this card shining in? Honestly, it's pretty straightforward in a Piltover Shadow Owls region combination, because with Shadow Owls, you get access to Stalking Shadows and Fading Memories. So you have the best odds, in conjunction with stuff like Iterative Improvement from the Piltover region itself. You're able to, it's the region combination that allows you to duplicate this card the most. And I believe that'll be the home for this sort of card. May it be Burn, Aggro, or some other more interesting builds. I will definitely be messing around with this card. I love Piltover and Zon as a region, and I definitely do love the design of this card as well. We got Adaptatron 3000. Honestly, when I think about it, it reminds me of French fries. I'm calling McDonald's. McDonald's is pretty cool. A 1 mana 1/3, solid stat line. Not nearly as bad as you would think. Like, it's really good against aggro decks in general because you can trade into 2/1s amongst other things. And when you summon a tech, we shared keywords. I don't know if there's any techs or if we've ever seen any other techs. I'd have to look into that. But it's safe to assume that we are going to be seeing more techs with the expansion. And I'm really excited to see what potential combinations we can see here. The Circuit Breaker is a skill generated by the Sunpork's pose, in case you're wondering. And they just put it there. And then we got the Noxus ones. We got the Incisive Tactician, aka Serious Orange Man, who is or will become a 6 mana 4/5 with Rally if you mean the reputation cost. So basically, at the expense of not requiring plunder like Citrus Courier, the Incisive Tactician will allow Noxus to have Rally outside of Katarina, Apprehend, and Shampoo. Shampoo may be overridden by Mustache Man right here. And I'm excited to mess around with it. I think some people are underplaying him, and I think a lot of people are underrating the Thrashing Snapper. The Thrashing Snapper is really cool, actually, because it is a great way to enable Reputation early on in the match. As when an enemy blocks him, he gains +3 power, and as long as there's no tough in the way or no barrier, and he actually strikes for 5 damage, then all of a sudden, from turn 1 even, you're able to start working for that Reputation, which is neat. There's also some potential combinations, like you could play Thrashing Snapper with cards that generate, blockers on your opponent's side of the board, stuff like that, right? Like, with like vulnerable mechanics as well. There's a lot of potential combos to enable Thrashing Snapper more, and I'm definitely excited to mess around with them and with the Reputation archetype as it's getting more and more tools to diversify regarding deck building. And that's basically all the cards that I had to talk about. We have a 24-minute video because, like I said, there's a lot of cards to cover here, but overall this expansion is looking like fire, man. I'm really excited. MALPHITE looks really dope, and I can't wait, man. I'm just getting more and more impatient as time passes, and hopefully we get these cards soon. I'm gonna stop talking. I'm losing my voice at this point. My throat is a little bit rough because I've been casting for like 6 hours, and now I did this video, so I'm gonna look forward to shutting up for the rest of the day. So leave a like, for my efforts and everything. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and hopefully you guys are excited. Let me know what you think about MALPHITE yourselves. Have a slow day. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for daily Legends of Runeterra content. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and I'll stop talking. Love ya, and I'll see you tomorrow.